astrology is about being liberated, to be liberated from the kind of chains and illusions of your upbringing, your background, your culture, and your karma.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Lyn Birkbeck, and we are going to be talking about dynamic interactive astrology. But first, I'd like to invite you to my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, a little bio on myself. There's a donate button if you'd like to support the show through Patreon. Thank you very much. There's also a YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. As I mentioned, my guest today is Lyn Birkbeck. He has been involved in astrology for over 40 years, and he'll be talking about how he got involved and what astrology is and what it isn't. And during our talk, we do a little reading on myself, or a consultation as he calls it, and we go through some of the things that are involved in how he consults with people and helps them with astrological information. And we talk about where the world is today and how we can evolve and change. It's a really interesting talk. You got to listen a little closely because the accent's very strong. But I loved talking to Lyn. He's a great guy. I hope to have him back on the show in the future. And so here he is. This is Lyn Birkbeck. Good morning to you, Lyn Birkbeck, and it's probably the evening where you are in England.
It is indeed.
Well, I'm glad that my morning and your evening are intersecting here this morning, and we're going to talk about astrology. And you've been doing this a long time, I guess, because I read your little bit of your bio. And when did you start getting interested in astrology?
I was introduced to it by my girlfriend at the time, who was called Stella.
Yeah, Stellar?
As in star. I wasn't at all into it at the time, but she read the stuff out from a magazine. We said I'd change my job, leave my home, and probably end a relationship. Oh, yeah. And they all happened. So when I found myself in a different part of the country, in Wales, in actual fact, I thought, what's that all about? What? So I started to look into it, and the rest is history, as they say. Yeah.
Now, as someone who is a professional skeptic, that's me. I always thought, because I'll be honest, I didn't know what astrology was in the first place. I sort of had this sort of, woo-woo hippie kind of thing that it was. And I had a friend whose wife was into astrology. I guess a lot of women love this astrology thing. Yeah. And I think it's because the intuition is higher in women, and they vibrate in a different way than most men. But she did a combination of astrology and tarot cards. And I said, well, I'll do a reading with you. And so she said, we were doing one of these readings, and she flipped this card over, and it was about career, and it was a person jumping off a cliff into blackness. And she goes, oh, your career is going to change. And I go, what are you talking about? I've been doing the same thing for 12 years. That's not going to happen. This is my, I'm dedicated to this. I was a stand-up comedian, and I thought, well, I'm just, she doesn't know. I go, now I have proven that this is complete nonsense. Well, literally 6 to 8 months later, I jettisoned that career and became a writer. And it was a series of events that sort of happened that led me to that. And I remember thinking, how did those cards in that moment know this? Because I was absolutely 100% sure that was not going to happen. And I realized, well, maybe there is something here. I mean, there's obviously there's a lot to the unseen. There's a lot to when you look out at the stars that you feel these feelings. What is astrology that I didn't know? What do people think it is, and what do you think it is? Because I'm guessing that people that think the way I did, that's not what it is.
Astrology is many, many things. It's been around for a long time, and it's probably best described as a cosmic clock.
Oh.
And so for everything there is a season, as the saying goes. And that's very true of astrology. Everything is intricately connected. There's a great book by a guy called Michael Talbot called The Holographic Universe, which is essentially how everything is interconnected. And so astrology is kind of algebra of life, as one astrologer called it, where you can tap into that cosmic clock and see what time it is. And so with you, the time was for you to change, and it came through the cards or the astrology. And that's it. It's so mysterious how it does it. I think quantum physics is getting towards understanding why this happens. And when the two converge, that is the esoteric and the scientific, then we really will start motoring. But until then, we're going to be confused.
So really, it's a spiritual endeavor in a sense. It's about tuning into something that is eternal.
Mm-hmm.
And mysterious is such a great word because it's like death is mysterious, life is mysterious, being an animated creature like we are. It's all really mysterious, and we take it for granted because it's what we do all day is we're us.
Yeah. As Einstein said, life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be experienced.
Yeah. I don't know who that guy is, but he sounded like...
But he knew a thing or two, right?
Yeah.
And so,
right.
So I've been doing it for 40 years professionally, just under 40 years.
So do you, I know you have, what's the dynamic, I forgot the name of it. I wrote it down
the dynamic interactive astrology, it's called.
Yes. Explain what that is and how you are a practitioner of that.
Well, it's quite a distillation of my 40 years experience as an astrologer, and also 8 books that have gone before that. Rather than having to study astrology and memorize what this means, memorize what that means, which is really hard work. And often it's a bit of a fool's errand anyway, because you find that people aren't as true to the astrological definitions as you like them to be. There's always a mystery, again, in play. And so I thought, well, let's get keywords for planets and signs, put them together from the chart, which you can do by simply using a word for the planet, a word for the sign, and a word for the house. Then you have a three-worded phrase, and from that you run with it. Basically, the book shows you how to run with it, how you then tap into your own innate, internal, hidden, maybe knowledge, because human beings, as I said, it's back to being holographic. We are connected, far more connected with ourselves and everything else than we know. I think like the human brain, it blocks out, it vets a lot of information because it can't cope with it all. Hence why people who take hallucinogens find often they can't cope with what they've opened the door to. But the fact is that we do have that door, and it can be opened with or without hallucinogens. People vary enormously. Some people have very loose boundaries, and that's usually when they have a very strong Neptune in their chart, because Neptune is a planet of no boundaries. It's a planet of the sea, of the ocean. And of course, the ocean has no boundaries other than what the earth or the land imposes on it. So it can go on and on and on. Always what's called, association of ideas, or the law of correspondences is what it's called in esoteric verbiage. Yeah.
So you're studying not only just astrology, but you're studying all kinds of other disciplines that intersect. Is what it seems like to me.
Psychology comes into it, and various spiritual teachings, they come into it. I use the Mayan calendar as well in my work. I use something called gene keys. So I use a lot of, you might say, esoteric subjects and information. But this book, the Dynamic Interactive Astrology, it really kind of allows a person to enter astrological thinking and astrological wisdom very quickly, because you come straight in, you go, right, what's the key word for the key phrase for my sun in my chart? And I'll take it from there. What I then do is give a lot of questions, address questions to the reader's key phrase, which kind of opens it up even further, and then it starts their association of ideas, again, or accelerates them even more. So, for instance, just to use myself as an example, I have the sun in Virgo in the third house, and the key phrase for that is purpose for sun, Virgo to improve, third house communication or thinking. So my purpose in life is to improve thinking, my own and hopefully other people's. That's my central purpose. So I write a lot. I talk. I don't talk as much as I used to. I write more than I used to and talk less. but I still think a hell of a lot.
Yeah, well, you got to think to talk, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And sometimes it's better if you don't think than talk. But other times it's worse.
Do you work with individuals?
That's my main work. Yeah, one-to-one.
And does it start with someone telling you their birthday?
Their birth date, their birth time, if they have it, which makes a lot of difference, and their birthplace.
Okay. Can we do a couple seconds on me just because I'm curious?
Sure, yeah. I'll just get the program up and make that easier. So
people can contact you and get a reading, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's what it's called. I call it a posh name. I call it a consultation. And so what's your birth date, Bob?
February 25th, 1954.
And what time of day were you born, do you know?
Well, I remember my mother telling me it was just either before midnight or after midnight, which could make a difference in the day, I suppose.
Yes, that's a good one. That's great. That could be 24 hours out, what you're telling me.
Yeah, well, yeah. But she said it was very late. I think it was a few minutes after midnight, so it must have just been a day change then into the 25th.
Okay, so hopefully you were just into the 25th, okay?
Yeah. First in line. Maybe I was first in line for the 25th.
We're hoping. And where were you born?
I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota.
All right. Now, when I get saints in the gazetteer, it's always a toss up whether it's spelled with ST or SAINT. So I think it's probably St. Paul.
I always saw it as ST, but.
And there you are. Okay. So yeah, the moon will have changed signs that day. And the moon is very important. The moon represents your emotional nature. And with you, your moon was either in Scorpio or Sagittarius. So that's something to be considered, as we don't know for sure what time you were born.
Well, I find that interesting that it was an emotional, either way, it would have been an emotional time. So I've always had.
There's a big difference between the moon in Scorpio and the moon in Sagittarius. Moon in Scorpio people, they usually have a bit of a problem, did I use that word, because they're emotionally intuitive, but they tend to attract betrayal.
Oh, what's the other one? I'll tell you which one I relate to.
The other one that you got.
I'm not going to pick the best one, but I'll be honest. Which one's
Yeah, well, Moon and Sag doesn't attract betrayal so much. They can attract kind of being sort of duped a bit because Sagittarius Moon is kind of quite sort of innocent abroad in many ways.
Well, I would say the first one is more certainly when I was younger.
Yeah, that you can sort of grow out of it, but it's But anyway,
I don't have a lot of betrayal these days, so.
So I just. You don't get a lot of betrayal these days. Yeah?
No. My intuition.
What I say about Moon Scorpio people is like, the only person you're betraying is yourself.
Yeah.
The only person you're being
let's go with that one. This sounds more right to me than the other one.
Just to me, intuitively, but it is a bit of a hot potato.
I like a good hot potato.
Yeah, because you're talking to me.
I just like the phrase, it's a bit of a hot potato.
Yeah. And so, did you fight with your dad quite a bit?
No.
Let's get back to what I was talking about with making a key phrase. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, your sun is so use that word purpose for the sun, okay? And it's in the sign of Pisces. And how the book works is you just select. You're given a choice of keywords for each planet and sign and house.
Oh.
And from that, you make the key phrase. So the first is the sun. Now, the sun can be, you have a choice of a short shit list, or later on in the book, you go to a bigger list, which is what I call a keyword cloud.
Okay.
So, like the sun is choice of purpose, confidence, or life force. I like using the word purpose because it's bold. It's going right into what your life purpose is. And so with you, purpose in Pisces, and there's got a keyword for Pisces, or keyword choices are to inspire or transcend, to accept, surrender, or to heal, suffer, or relieve. Which one do you like? Inspire?
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you know that?
I just did. So your purpose is to inspire, and the sun's in the fourth house. And the fourth house keywords are coming up. Oh, it's a short list choice. Okay, is private or inner life, to inspire foundations or family, or inspire roots or security.
I'm going to go with the first one.
Yeah. So home, inner life, private life, to inspire privately. Yeah. So with them, I'd ask the first question. The first song question would be to explore that, to run with it. So how would you run with that?
Well, I think that has to do, for me, it has to do with seeking and meditation and being mindful and thoughtful about the way that I move through the world and what I allow in and what I don't.
Interesting. Yeah. You are far more private than you give out, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty, I think so. I mean, I have grown to be able to talk about things that are going on inside me with less fear and less trepidation over the years, because I feel safer to do that. But there certainly was always, particularly as a young person, a quiet sort of introspection that I didn't share with a lot of people.
Did you feel that your kind of heart was on your sleeve, or maybe even still?
No, I feel like I was guarded.
Yeah, that's great Scorpio moon.
I was always still am a fairly guarded person.
Yeah, because you're also Scorpio rising. Either of those birth times, you'll still be Scorpio rising. Yeah. The rising sign is also explored in my book, Dynamic Interactive Astrology, and that is what's called your rising sign or ascendant, which is simply the part which is the eastern point of a chart. If you look to the east when you were born, the sign rising there, it's got the rising sign. In your case, it's Scorpio. I said in either case, so that we have kind of keywords for that as well. So the key word for the ascendant is persona or image, presence, self, or window on the world. And so your persona would be colored by the sign it's in, and the Scorpio has the keywords of empower, influence, deepen, merge. So you cloak yourself, yeah?
I have, yeah.
So that's describing your image. Are you quite probing, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, that's very. It's a kind of key word for Scorpio, is probe. So you have the kind of persona that probes, or you probe personas. And going back to your purpose to inspire inner life, you're not that interested in people's fronts, are you? You're interested in what lies behind it.
Absolutely. That's absolutely it.
So you can see that dynamic interactive astrology is also a bit of a game, because you can use it and play it with other people, and you can bounce off one another and say, well, I think that key phrase means that in your case, where you might think differently. So it sets off a whole interesting displaying of each other's qualities in a way which is quite powerful because it gets to it so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
As I've only just met you, and I can just, using those keywords, I can determine what's really happening. That's what astrology does. It's funny, when I have an oracle, an app, which is an oracle, astrological oracle. It's called the Astro Oracle.
Uh-huh.
And I use it obviously for my work, and I always use it before a session with a client. And I used it with you today, and the symbol I got was a water sprite. And I thought, right, Bob's going to be watery. And you're very watery because your Pisces is a water sign, and so Scorpio. So you're very, very watery. And water represents, undercurrents, emotions.
And my background that I'm using today is water. How about that?
I know. I did. When that came up, I thought, oh, right, there we go.
Yeah, look at that. You knew more about me than I did before we even started.
That's the burden of being an astrologer, I tell you.
I'll bet. Some people like to, I guess, use astrology to predict the future and what's going to happen. And it's I find that super interesting, but I also, the part, I guess, that rubs me a little bit the wrong way is that does it make people not take responsibility for creating their future? In that, it's like, tell me what my future, and I guess that's what, now I'm at the core of what bothered me about it. It's like, well, why are you giving up this thing to, it's like, oh, someone's going to tell me what's going to happen, somebody that's not me, and I'm not creating that reality for myself, which I believe we can do with, and these are tendencies, I think. Is what
absolutely. It's like it's credited to Abraham Lincoln, but I think it was somebody else later that said the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Yeah.
Which is what you just said. And there's a great bit of bad press about astrology that must probably have occurred in the 20s and 30s when it became popular and used in newspapers and magazines. Yeah. And so it gained its reputation as a predictive thing, and it spread, because it sold newspapers. But it's not. I'm forever stressing that it's not a predictive thing, astrology. It was maybe a long, long time ago when astrology was just used for kings and queens and what have you. And that was another matter, to predict who was going to win a battle. But as far as I know, they never got it right. Now, it's a curse upon serious astrologers, this predictive notion. And as dynamic interactive astrology promotes that, I'm creating my future. I'm creating me, right? And that's the revolution, really, because that's what's making human beings wake up. And astrology is governed by the planet Uranus, which is the planet of evolution, the planet of awakening. It's also the planet of exploding, by the way. And they're all on a par, those words, the key words for Uranus: exploding, evolving, awakening. And that's what we're doing big time now. But at the same time as we're awakening, we're also doing a lot of destructive stuff as well.
Yeah, there must be, looking back over history and intersecting it with astrology, I guess we can kind of look at tendencies in human culture to how we breathe as a species, how we are maybe more evolving or more devolving in certain eras. I mean, this feels like what you just said. It seems there's a lot of really fascinating things scientifically and information wise, and I think even spiritually, that are happening. And on the flip side, there's so much anger and divisiveness and turmoil.
Yeah, but that's to do with the planet Uranus in conflict with the planet Saturn, which it's been for about 2 or 3 years now, will be for about another year or two. And that is a conflict between awakening and keeping things as they are, Saturn. All right. And that happens. It's a cycle which occurs about every 10 years. It keeps coming back. But this is a particularly long, particularly vicious one, which brings up the whole thing about the old versus the new, conservative versus the radical, Democrat versus Republican. Whatever polarity you want to choose, it goes into a critical mass. Presently, it's been going into critical mass.
Okay, so you see this as certainly universally that it's just a period of time that's going to shift in a year or two.
Yes, it's like weather. It does its thing, and it recedes somewhat when the cosmic clock moves on, right? But it leaves its mark. It's like if you punch a pillow, your fist might be taken away, but there's still a dent in the pillow, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, especially the way I punch a pillow.
When you're feeling betrayed.
When I'm feeling betrayed, yes. Or if I scream in a pillow, that's my face dent. That's my favorite.
That. Great. It still is a dent. Yeah. So, the book I wrote about a while ago called "Understanding the Future," which is all about the planetary influences as they occur for everybody. But I got so frustrated writing it because I knew people would still wouldn't listen. People still want to just hear good news. It's an illness humanity has. We're surrounded by crisis, and we're still hoping to go on a nice holiday to escape it all.
Yeah. It's we're an interesting experiment, us humans.
Yes. Again, experimentation is a key word for the planet Uranus again. So humanity experimenting, exploding, evolving, awakening. It's all Uranus. All about awakening. Yeah. So, like I say, back to how dynamic interactive astrology works. You see, in your chart, we can look at Uranus and say what that factor is in your chart. Okay. So you've got Uranus in the 8th house, and it's in Cancer. So awakening to feel Cancer. Well, I'll give you the key word for Cancer, and you pick a choice, and you can pick the one you want. So Cancer, keywords: to feel or receive, to nurture or comfort, to sympathize. Which one do you want? What are you awakening to?
The second one.
To nurture or comfort.
Yes.
Yeah. Awakening to nurture. Okay. And it's in the 8th house, which is a spooky house. It's the house of death. And
cheery.
Key words for the 8th house are intimacy, crisis, soul, astral, occult realms, or transformation, death.
I'm going to go with intimacy.
Okay, so awakening to nurture intimacy. So you could say, what does that mean to you?
What that means to me is to open my heart and be vulnerable and allow myself not to be afraid to connect on the deepest levels possible.
That's brilliant. You see, that's how you're awakening to nurture the intimacy.
Yeah, it's always been my biggest challenge, but it's the thing I'm most curious about and most drawn to, and it's a little bit of an inner battle sometimes too.
Yeah, it would be because your Uranus is on the same place as your southern node of the moon, which is also covered in dynamic interactive astrology. The southern node of the moon is where you come from. It's your kind of karmic, what you've left behind or trying to leave behind. So there's probably bad memories of intimacy.
Yeah, some, of course, and it's there's some fear there and some trepidation about doing the thing that I'm drawn to do.
Yeah. You also have Jupiter in the 8th house. Okay. Now Jupiter, so to get back to the key words, Bob, Jupiter is about growing, enjoying, or seeking. Which one do you want?
I love them all. Let's go with enjoying.
Enjoying. So enjoying, and it's in Gemini. So enjoying. And how it qualifies is Gemini. And Gemini is enjoying to communicate, to amuse or inform, interestingly, or to value or facilitate. So to communicate, to amuse or inform, or to facilitate.
Well, I'm going to go with amuse and inform because that's really
So you're enjoying to amuse or inform. Again, 8th house intimacy. But you might choose a different word for your Jupiter key phrase. You might use the word, I repeat them: intimacy, crisis, soul, or astral, occult realms, or transformation, death.
Yeah, first one, intimacy.
Again, yeah, intimacy, crisis, soul. Yeah, so you're enjoying to inquire, communicate about that, and that's your path to. Whereas Uranus is your path to awakening, Jupiter is your path to believing, to faith.
I love this. It's very. What I didn't expect when we were talking about this is that I'm actually having some feelings in my throat and my chest as we're speaking. Like it's making me feel like touched. I'm touched by all this.
Yes.
You don't really, you don't spend a lot of time talking about this during your day you do because it's what you do, but walking around and going to the store, I'm not talking about this. It's really good.
Indeed. And that's the great problem with humanity, in my view, is that we need to look more deeply. We've got to grow our souls, quite simply. And you could say, actually, funnily enough, Jupiter is growing. Growing is the key word for Jupiter, remember. And 8th house, soul, is the house of your soul. So growing your soul is what you're about.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that humanity itself needs to do that rather than being distracted and taken in by superficial nonsense.
Plenty of that to go around.
Because the hour is 9. No? Sorry?
I said there's plenty of superficial nonsense to go around.
Oh, it'll kill us. Which is ironic, isn't it? Because it's death it's running away from.
Well, that is always the big question, is that denial of death is, the activities that we do are really, a lot of them have to do with denying the fact that we're not going to be here forever, and that to try to remain immortal in whatever way that we can. It's all
quite. Well, that's the thing. I mean, see, one thing I have acquired, let's use that word, through practicing astrology for so long is a belief in reincarnation, because nothing else makes any sense. You don't come in with a blank slate. You come in with a whole agenda, with a whole baggage.
Sure feels like that to me.
Well, it would do, because you've got Saturn in the 12th house. See, Saturn is a big deal to the study of astrology, because Saturn is the planet of key words for Saturn. The key word I like most, because it's quite evocative, really, or meaningful, is learning. We're all learning something. We're in this life to learn something, and we have our own individual learning process. Now, your Saturn is in Scorpio, so you're learning to empower, influence, learning to authenticate, merge, or learning to penetrate or deepen.
This is really penetrate.
Yeah, learning to penetrate. And the 12th house has the keywords for the 12th house. The 12th house is the most interesting house of all, because the keywords for it are karma, womb life, the source, behind the scenes, unseen, retreat, meditation, institutions. So take your pick there. Probably quite a few of them, but
quite a few of them. Let's go with meditation.
Yeah, meditation. So you're learning to empower or influence. Yeah, learning to empower through meditation.
It's making me feel really good to have you taking me through this. I really find this fascinating.
And it's great that you can do it with other people. You can really get insights into people rather than just them living what you think they are or what you want them to be, and find out they're actually something far more profound than that.
Yes. Have you had, I know you've had them, but had clients have very profound life changes after a consultation with you?
For sure.
Can you give me an example? Because I love anecdotal.
I'm careful for anecdotal, because there's an expression in astrology which says Uranus never remembers, and I'm very Uranian.
Yeah, okay.
I don't do that. I'm very good at thinking on the spot.
Okay, very good.
To record, but I'll try. The first one that comes to mind is a funny one. It's quite answering a question, but it was like a woman who was having great trouble with her husband. And I gave her a consultation, and we recorded it, as I nearly always do. But she was too frightened to listen to it again, because it was a bit too, well, you might imagine, it's a bit quite heavy. And so she kind of hid the tape away. And one day she was walking up the stairs in a flat, and she heard her own voice, and she heard herself laughing. So what the hell was that? And her husband had found the cassette, and it totally changed the way they related to one another. So, because it was divulging her secret thoughts and feelings about him, and which were never voiced.
Sure.
But they were in that very circuitous way, but with my kind of can opener kind of psychology at work.
Well, so that really was about them communicating, and she was on it. She was too afraid, obviously, to tell the truth, or maybe didn't even realize it until she worked with you. And then he got to hear it, and it's much to her blessing that he didn't react negatively, that he was able to actually open up a line of communication.
Well, quite. That's the thing, but it broke the ice.
Yeah, it could have went the other way easily.
For sure. Well, that's what terrifies me of my job, because I am an icebreaker and a can opener, as I say.
Yeah.
But that's just the way I am, because I have Pluto in the first house. You see, first house is the house of one's image, the house of one's presence, and Pluto is a very powerful, penetrative planet.
Except, the truth is the truth either way. So if it explodes something apart, that maybe it shouldn't have been together in the first place. Or if it brings something closer together, maybe, so either way, as uncomfortable as it could be, maybe that to me, that's the gift. If there's some kind of truth inside the things that are coming out.
But interestingly, you use the word truth, because, again, back to our friend Uranus, you see, with all these beings awakening and exploding. Another key word for Uranus is truth. It also governs astrology, Uranus. And so, as a man said, the truth will make you free.
Yeah.
Somebody else said, for the most part, people are afraid of that truth that will make them free. But astrology is about being liberated, to be liberated from the kind of chains and illusions of your upbringing, your background, your culture, and your karma. I mean, I'm quite a niche astrologer in a way, because I am so I go for the jugular.
Well, good for you. I think I like that. I think that's
yes. I like that about you too, because it's talking turkey, isn't it?
Well, it is, and what's to lose other than the thing that's holding you back?
That's a good little statement. What's to lose other than the thing that's holding you back? It's like, but human beings, to quite a degree, are very attached to what's holding them back.
Well, sure, because it's known, and there's a safety in the known. Even Absolutely. Though it may not be the best thing for you, and there's a lot to be said for, I think most people want to feel two things in life. They want to feel safe and they want to feel loved. And the thing that safety, sometimes the thing that makes you feel safe may not be the best thing for you.
Absolutely not. You see, I mean, safety is a lunar thing in astrology, and the moon will position in the chart will tell you where you do and not feel safe. And so, whereas, say, Saturn is a planet of fear, to use a negative keyword, but it's interesting to use that keyword for Saturn and go into using dynamic interactive astrology to investigate your fear. So, you see, with your Saturn, you could equally say at another time, maybe another place, that you, with Saturn in Scorpio in the 12th house, that you had a fear of penetrating in your karma.
Mm. Yeah.
I have Saturn in the 12th house as well. And I have Saturn in Cancer, which is a fear of feeling my karma. But I've overcome that fear and went ahead leaps and bounds by doing so, because I was putting a big fear to bed.
Yeah, that seems to be the underpinning of all issues that we have is fear.
Yes, that's why Saturn is so important in the chart, because it's what we're learning. It's understandable what we're learning. We wouldn't be very good at initially. Whereas people are petrified of not measuring up, aren't they?
Sure. If you're going to be afraid of something, it might as well be that.
but that's the disease, isn't it?
It sure is. I was wondering, I don't know what made me think of this. The Webb telescope that's up there now in space.
Yeah.
Is that something that, when you get to, you're actually seeing, I know you're studying the stars and astrology and all that, but now we're actually out there with a telescope going so many millions of miles into space and seeing all this really cool stuff. Does that intrigue you in a special way, being an astrologer?
Well, you see, I'm of the kind of inner space sort of guy.
Okay, I'll go with that too.
And it's like, it's back to that science and mysticism converging I was talking about earlier on. So the science goes out and out and out into space, and the mystic goes in and in and in within the space. But they're both the same thing in the end, because they're both a mystery. A writer called Robert Monroe is now dead. His work was all about journeys out of the body, astral travel.
Oh, okay.
And how he went out and out and out and in and in and in. There's an institute, Monroe Institute in Virginia, which is studies non-physical experience, and he found that going way out or way in, you found the same thing, which was essentially two things: a portal and a shining presence.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. I recommend his work. I recommend it highly.
Say the name again. Say the name again really slowly so I can.
Robert Monroe.
Robert Monroe. Okay.
Yeah. And my book's called Practicing a Dynamic Interactive Astrology, because I have to keep telling everybody that, because it's I believe in this book because it's really going to be a way of quickly getting or living astrologically, which means living cosmically, where it means aligning yourself with a greater reality, which is where we've got to in our evolution. We have got to do it pretty quickly.
I have to agree with that one. Come on, folks, let's get going on that.
Yes, come on, over the hill. But how that works, I just feel like I'm just one kind of foot soldier spreading the word, you might say.
Well, that's all you can do, and then you attract like minds and hope that they spread it too. And that's one of the reasons I do this show, is to get information to people that there's other people that are thinking along the same lines. And
I'm very, very glad to see what kind of person you are, Bob, if I may say so, because you're deep.
Well, thank you.
I like deep. And actually, one of the best things they ever said to me about a client was, "I love your depth."
And then you punched him in the face.
No, you don't.
Who are you to decide if I'm deep or not, you idiot?
Exactly. And that's it. That's the light and shade, because this is the humorous in you, isn't it? Because all the best humorists are dark.
Now you're speaking the language that I speak, but I think it's dark because it's ironic. There's everything's got that double side to it.
Too much, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was thinking about, and I think about this probably more than most.
Yes.
When you look the space between the things that look like things, like planets and stars and all the things that are used for constellations and these things, but most space, outer and inner, is just that. There's a seeming nothingness there, but it isn't nothing because things travel through it, so it can't be nothing. That to me is kind of like the interesting thing, is how do I plug into that, and and it really is when I meditate, it feels huge. When I'm really, it feels vast, like space.
Yeah.
And that's the inner. And then I look out into space, and that feels vast. And when I try to think about it, my mind will only go so far, and then it'll stop because it can't comprehend it beyond a certain thing. And that's why, what is that? It's been described as a lot of different things with religions and physics and, plasma. It's been called lots of different things. To me, it's a vibration. I think that's why people are so moved by music, because it's very sort of concrete vibration that they can feel.
Yeah, music is the best thing going on planet Earth.
And I think coming back to Einstein, he talked about we dance to a strange and distant tune.
Yes.
Which is what I actually know who he is.
No. Yeah. So I think back to that infinite space thing again. As we're talking astrology, it is Uranus again. So Uranus is the unknown. It's infinite. It's that which we can't really get our lower intellect mind round.
No,
that's what it is. I mean, Uranus is the only planet in the solar system to go round on its side. Did you know that?
Did not. Now I do.
Yeah, so it points its pole towards the sun.
That I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
So it is the odd one out. It is the outsider. It is the rebel.
You think we'll ever visit there like we've been to Mars now, which is really extraordinary when you think about that.
Well, I think the fact that Uranus is even more extraordinary. I mean, it's enormous. It's like Neptune. It's a gigantic thing, and it's just a beautiful kind of misty blue orb. That's why I'm an astrologer. I'm a sky watcher, so to speak. And it is the great. It's the higher mind. It's a universal mind, Uranus. I go into what I do in dynamic interactive astrology is I pair planets up, because then you set them off in a vibration by inquiring about one and the other at the same time, more or less. They then start to resonate. So I divide them into the lights, which is the sun and the moon, the links, which is Mercury and Uranus, the lovers, which is Venus and Neptune, and the forces, which is Mars and Pluto. Now, Mercury and Uranus. So Mercury is at the lower octave of Uranus. Uranus is the universal mind, intuition, higher knowledge, whereas Mercury is like, deductive thinking, logic, perception. So when you set the one off, it sets the other off. And that's the big deal when you start, then you start, and you've got those two planets in very good aspect in your chart anyway. So you've got a very intuitive mind.
Well, it's
whether
really
you like it or not. What?
Well, sometimes I do like it. Sometimes I don't.
For sure, because
that's what I'm intuiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what you're describing when you're talking about the aspects of planets, it's almost like the solar system, our particular solar system, is an individual, like a person in a sense. And then when you extrapolate out, then there's lots of these individuals in the universe, and then they connect in a certain way. When you
absolutely, it's like the path, like the pantheon of gods, isn't it?
Yeah,
and the ancients, that's how they saw it. In terms of, and we still name our planets and stars after mythological figures.
Yeah, and it's because it's so ancient and it's pre conventional science.
Yeah,
you wonder, well, where did this information come from? And it didn't really, I don't think it came from anywhere. I think it's here. And there were people that were able to
tap into it
and create books. And
it's already written, because it's like, why do they call the planets what they call them? I mean, Pluto, they wanted to call it something else originally. But the guy who discovered it, Clyde Tombaugh, his daughter, his 8-year-old, 9-year-old daughter said, no, who were like Pluto the dog, who Disney dog. So no, call him Pluto, and so his father, obliged his daughter. So Pluto got called Pluto. And Pluto in astrology totally matches coincides with, correlates to Pluto, the god who is the god of the underworld.
Wow.
So again, returning to the dynamic interactive astrology, let's look at your Pluto before we run out of time. If you know what I'm saying. Yeah, your Pluto is in Leo in the 9th house. So key words for Pluto would be empowering. There it goes. Yeah, empowering, intensifying, or transforming. Which one do you want, Chief?
Empowering.
Correct. Empowering and Leo, keywords for Leo, empowering to command or create, dramatize, entertain, or express or illuminate. Which do you like?
The middle one, dramatize.
To dramatize or entertain. So empowering to entertain or to entertain, you can use different conjoining words to make all the difference between phrase. Anyway, empowering, entertain. 9th house is a big house. 9th house gives us empowering to entertain, you'd say through. 9th house, beliefs, culture, laws, divinity, education, philosophy, far journeys, foreign affairs.
Far journeys.
Far journeys. Okay, you like that, didn't you? So to empowering to entertain through far journeys. What does that mean?
What it means to me is the journey is not an actual physical traveling. It's a journey. It's kind of like the way I look at art. It's or any kind of. I want to be taken to a place that I've never been, that I can't get to myself.
Yeah.
Rather than having my preconceived ideas confirmed, I want to be taken to a new, faraway place.
I like that.
Do you want to hear a joke? Want to hear a joke a friend of mine used to do? Because you mentioned Leo.
Yeah.
He said, I was reading my horoscope the other day, and it said, you will marry a Leo. And I was in the men's room earlier today, and this guy walked in. He said, hi, I'm Leo.
And what did you do then?
That was a friend of mine wrote that joke.
Great.
So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that? Let's see where Lyn is and how we can get a hold of him, because he's a fascinating guy and a delightful guest, I have to say. So how do we do that?
Well, it's my name, Lyn Birkbeck, LynBirkbeck, and you just lynbirkbeck.com goes straight to my site, and they find everything you want or don't want.
Yes.
Yes, and the book's called Dynamic Interactive Astrology by me, Lyn Birkbeck. Yeah.
And we can get that on Amazon, and I'm sure.
It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble,
all kinds of places. So if you're interested in astrology, that's the book you want to get. I have a feeling it's all great in there. Great stuff. We're looking at many decades of study and commitment to this discipline.
Yeah, for
this
sure.
Mysterious discipline. And my listeners love mystery. Not mystery novels, but real mystery, the mystery of existence.
Exactly. And that's cool because you're a Piscean, which is the sign of mystery.
Well, thanks so much for talking to me today, Lyn. I really enjoyed this, and I enjoyed my journey to another country, as always.
Yes.
And,
that's great. You use that term, another country, because that's who was it that said Shakespeare? He said God is another country.
Yeah.
No, you said death. Death is another country, you said, didn't you?
And today I'm going to, and maybe even onward, I'm going to use the phrase a bit of a hot potato. I just love that. That's my big takeaway from all this heavy, deep information.
Your English accent is more English than mine. Because I did have a typical English plummy voice.
Yeah, you have a great voice. A woman the other day said it. She goes, "It's a bit dodgy." She was an Asian woman. I don't know where she picked it up, but I said, "Dodgy." I love dodgy. She didn't say it with the English accent. I just like to do
it is, after all, English language, isn't it?
It is, yes.
As I have always loved what Churchill said about America and England, we're two countries separated by the same language.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'd come up with that, but he got here before I did. I would have.
He did.
Well, thanks. You have a fantastic day. I really appreciate it. I will send you a copy of this when it's completed. Yes. Thanks so much, Lyn. I really got a lot out of this.
Great. Hopefully we'll meet again, maybe.
Thank you so much for listening to The Exploding Human. Please visit the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. And once again, I want to thank Lyn Birkbeck for a great talk. Hope all your planets align, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.